Hey guys, tonight we are going back, way back, to a time when central heating did not exist. Amazon Prime was still centuries away, and winter meant one thing: pain. You are standing in a thatched hovel somewhere in medieval Europe. It is late November. Snowflakes flutter like ash outside your tiny wooden door. The hearth? Cold. The sky? Gray. Your hands? Already numb. And on the table, staring you in the face like a sick joke, is your only food for the next 4 months: a basket of turnips. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You glance out at the field. The last root vegetables have been pulled. Your neighbors are already locked indoors. The geese flew south a week ago, and your chickens, well, you ate the last one in October. That was a good day. Now it is just you, your crumbling firewood pile, and the noble turnip, lumpy, mildly bitter, and incredibly hard to love. Welcome to medieval winter survival. Population dwindling. You trudge across the packed dirt floor and prod the fire. A few pitiful sparks stir, but it is obvious you burned through your best logs during that cold snap in early November. Everyone always does. Even rich households run short, but you are not rich. You are the kind of person who has to think twice about using a candle. Historians still argue whether most peasant families actually had chimneys or just lived with a fire pit in the middle of the room and smoke curling out through a hole in the roof. Either way, you feel the soot already lining your lungs, and that is before you even manage to get it lit again. You wrap a threadbare wool shawl around your shoulders and eye your food. The turnips sit there, stubborn and purple, vaguely smug in their invincibility. Unlike delicate herbs or sweet fruits, turnips thrive in the cold. They are cold. They are unfeeling. They are your only chance. And no, you cannot just eat all of them now. That would be foolish. You will need them to last until at least March, maybe longer if the spring is late. So you pick one, just one, and begin to peel it with a dull iron blade that you keep tucked into your belt. The taste? Bland, slightly metallic. You chew slowly, wondering whether chewing even burns enough calories to make this worth it. Fun fact: turnips were so common in medieval Europe that eating them was often associated with poverty and punishment. In some villages, turnip thieves were branded with hot iron. Nobody wanted to be the one caught sneaking into someone else's root cellar. You sigh, there is no salt. That was used up last week. No onions left to mix in. Just this white, water-heavy orb of root vegetable misery. And you need to ration that too. Outside, you hear a dog barking somewhere far off. Maybe it is your neighbor's hound. Maybe it is feral. In the distance, someone is chopping wood. You can hear the rhythmic thud of axe on log, slow, steady, desperate. You envy them. They probably plan better. Maybe they still have potatoes. Not you. Your harvest was poor. Too much rain in the spring, too much heat in the summer. And now the cold is unforgiving. But here you are, standing in your patched wool socks, trying not to think about how long winter lasts when you are measuring it in meals. You decide to boil water. Even that feels like a luxury. You only have 2 buckets of water left inside the hut. The well is a short walk away, but the ground is frozen, and the rope you use to lower the bucket is stiff and brittle from frost. That is a chore for tomorrow. Today it is turnip stew again. You light a tiny fire with sticks you scavenged weeks ago. They were dry then. Now, not so much. Smoke pours up and licks the ceiling as you hover over it, coaxing it to life like a half-hearted prayer. Finally, the pot begins to bubble. You drop in the chopped turnip, watching it sink like a stone. The scent rises, earthy, slightly sour, and yes, still bland. You remember when you used to joke about eating the same meal every day. The joke was funnier when you were not living it. A mouse scurries by the wall. You make no move to stop it. Honestly, you are considering naming it. At least it is company. As night falls, the cold sets in harder. Your breath fogs in front of your face, even indoors. You layer on whatever you can, 2 tunics, an old cloak, and a wool cap that smells like last season's mold. Still, the chill finds the gaps, your wrists, your ankles, the back of your neck. The wind outside howls like a wild thing. You whisper to yourself, partly for comfort, partly to remember the sound of your own voice. That's when you notice something odd. Your fingers stiff, your toes numb. You wiggle them, trying to keep blood flowing. The fire crackles weakly. 1 log left. 1. You wonder if it is better to burn it tonight or save it for that inevitable day in January when the cold seeps into your bones like water into a crack. You finish your bowl of turnip soup and set it aside. No dishes tonight, just a wipe with a damp cloth and a muttered promise to scrub it tomorrow. Maybe if the cloth doesn't freeze. You lie back on your straw mattress, which is half frozen and only slightly less prickly than sleeping on gravel. The thatch above your head creaks, a draft slithers in through a gap in the wall. You pull your shawl tighter and close your eyes. It is just the first week of winter. There are over 90 more days to go, and you are already sick of turnips. You wake before dawn, because of course you do. Your body is cold, and sleep in this season comes in shallow doses, more like little naps wrapped in shivers. You sit up, blankets still clutched around your shoulders, and feel the ache in your back from a mattress that stopped pretending to be soft in early November. The fire is out, not even embers, just gray, sullen ash. Your breath puffs in the air as you rise. Time to get dressed. And by dressed, we mean layering every scrap of cloth you own and hoping it covers the bits that matter. You grab your outer tunic, your long undershirt, a stiff wool cap, and your only pair of boots, which are made of leather so worn it feels like parchment. They smell like mildew and defeat. This is when it hits you. Your clothes are not going to save you. Wool helps, sure, but it is itchy and stiff, and so full of last season's sweat and soot that it smells faintly like wet sheep cooked in smoke. Linen, your base layer, is better, but you have patched it so many times that it looks like a medieval quilt of desperation. And socks? You have 1. It is wrapped around your hand today because you cut it on a splinter last night. You probably will not die of exposure today. Probably. But that wind sneaking under your clothes, it knows where you are weakest. Down the collar, up the sleeves, between the buttons. It finds every crevice like a ghost with a grudge. Here's a fun historical note. Medieval peasants had no zippers, no Velcro, no puffy down jackets. They made do with ties, laces, pins, and layers upon layers. You feel that now as you tie your wool girdle tight, tucking it around your midsection, not for fashion, but to keep your organs warm. Nothing says high fashion like functional intestinal insulation. Historians still argue whether most rural peasants had access to even basic fur trims, or if those were strictly for the upper classes. Either way, you do not have any. The closest thing to fur in your home is a matted foxtail nailed above the door to keep out evil spirits. You are not sure it works, but honestly, it is doing more than your socks. Outside, dawn breaks, but it is not the hopeful kind. It is gray, pale, and cold enough to sting your nostrils when you breathe in. The kind of cold that makes your teeth ache just from smiling. Not that you have much to smile about. Your chores await. The bucket sits by the door, coated in a crust of ice. Time to get water. You step outside, boots crunching on frost as you trudge toward the well. The rope is stiff, just like yesterday, and your hands already burn from touching it. As you lower the bucket, the wind slices across your knuckles and reminds you that gloves are for the rich. Finally, you haul up your prize, half a bucket of slushy water and a splash that soaks your already damp sleeve. Lovely. You mutter something unholy under your breath and head back, already dreading the next outing. Back indoors, you peel off your wet things and hang them near the hearth. You stare at the cold fire pit and debate whether to use that last log now or wait until night. You choose to wait. Daylight brings at least the illusion of warmth, and you can move around to stay warm. Night is a different beast. Instead, you turn to the noble turnip again. Breakfast is the same as dinner and lunch. You slice it raw today, chewing slowly while looking at the door and wondering if it is locked, not against burglars, but the wind. You think about the upper classes. They are probably wrapped in imported furs, sipping mulled wine by a roaring fire. You have root vegetables and a suspicious damp patch on your ceiling. Life is fair like that. Still, there is one upside. You remember a tale passed around the village last year, that noblewoman who caught her dress on fire while warming herself too close to the hearth. Charred silk, terrible smell, took down half the manor. You snort softly. Maybe your damp clothes are safer after all. You try to fix the draft with some extra straw. It helps. Barely. You press a piece of oiled cloth against the crack and jam a splintered board over it. It is not pretty, but medieval insulation rarely is. By midday, your toes have gone through their usual arc. Cold, colder, numb, tingly, then suspiciously silent. You stomp your feet a bit to wake them up. You wonder if anyone in history has died from sheer stubbornness in refusing to burn their last log. Probably. You might be next. Your neighbor stops by in the afternoon. His name is Thorn. He is older, with a beard that grows more icicles than hairs. He does not talk much, but he brings news. Someone in the next village lost a finger to frostbite. Tried to help birth a calf barehanded. You both shake your heads. You offer him a slice of raw turnip. He declines. You do not blame him. By sunset, the wind has picked up. Your cloak flaps, even indoors. You wrap it tight, finally giving in and lighting that last log. The fire flares weakly to life, casting golden flickers across the smoke-dark ceiling. You hold your hands close, eyes half closed, savoring the warmth. You know it will not last long, but for now, it is everything. You settle in for another sleepless night, your cloak wrapped like a cocoon. The fire fades, the wind howls, and you swear your clothes are plotting your slow demise, one drafty seam at a time. You wake to a terrible realization. You are hungry. Not the kind of hunger that makes you fantasize about roast chicken and gravy. No, this is deeper. This is the kind of hunger that stirs behind your ribs like an ache you can almost hear. The turnips did not hold you through the night. Again, you sit up and flex your jaw, which feels sore from clenching. Your body knows it is starving, even if your mind keeps trying to trick it. But you are not getting more food. Not now, because rationing is not a suggestion. It is your only rule, your fragile religion. You shuffle to your basket and choose your next turnip like a jeweler selects a diamond. Too small, and it barely counts as a meal. Too big, and you will regret it in a week when there is nothing left but a shriveled root that looks more like a curse than food. This one? It is average, lumpy, waxy, pale where it should be purple, still edible, which is good enough. You peel it slowly. There is no rush. Dragging out the ritual makes the meal feel longer. You wonder if kings ever had to eat the same thing for 90 days straight. Historians still argue whether the lower nobility ever truly experienced famine, or if their hard winters simply meant fewer spice cakes and less mead. One thing is certain, no one in your class would call this a lean season. It is just winter. You boil the turnip again. This time you try something new, roasting a few slices directly over the embers, using a stick you shave down with a dull knife. The result? A slightly crisp edge. You chew slowly, eyes closed, and for a moment you pretend it is meat. It is not. Still, your body thanks you. Sort of. Your stomach makes a hopeful noise, then an angry one. Turnips are high in fiber and low in joy. They are filling the way gravel fills a ditch, adequately, but without kindness. You add a dash of stale dried mint from a pouch hidden under your bedroll. The leaves crumble to dust. It is barely a flavor, but it is enough to make you feel like a chef. And speaking of that, medieval food had very little variety for peasants. Forget sugar, forget spices, forget even bread if you ran out of flour in autumn. You make do with what the land gives. And right now, the land is asleep under a foot of snow. Some people tried creative solutions. You remember stories from neighboring villages about acorn mush, pine needle tea, or even roasted bark in the worst years. You are not there yet, but the line gets thinner every day. After your meal, you venture out to check your pit. Not the outhouse, the storage pit you dug in the fall for keeping the turnips cool. Ironically, in winter, it is where they stay warm enough not to freeze solid, covered in straw and lined with moss. The pit is held up pretty well. You lift the makeshift wooden lid and peer inside. Still about 24 turnips left. That is the good news. The bad news? Some have started to sprout. You curse softly. Not because sprouts are inedible, they are not, but because it means the roots are waking up. And once they do, they start using their own energy to grow leaves. That energy? Calories, flavor, lifespan. You pick off the worst offenders, setting aside a few with blackened ends that might be mold. You will cut off the bad parts later, or not. You are getting less picky. While crouched there in the snow, your neighbor calls to you. Again, it is Thorn, this time with his son trailing behind. They have a small sack and offer to trade. 2 onions, slightly soft, for 4 turnips. You hesitate. Onions are gold. They add flavor, bite, variety. But 4 turnips? That is a full 2 days of rations. Still, you cave. You make the trade, handing over the roots like you are giving away family. You can feel the boy staring at the sack of turnips hungrily. You hate that you understand the look. Back inside, you cut 1 onion and put it directly into your pot. The smell alone makes your mouth water. You almost weep. Turnip and onion stew. You have never felt so rich. You allow yourself a second portion. You will regret it tomorrow. But tonight, you feast. That night, your dreams are vivid. Your stomach, full for the first time in days, lets you sleep deeper. You dream of a marketplace bursting with fruit and cheese. A baker hands you a pie. You wake up chewing your own sleeve. You groan, rubbing your eyes. The candle beside your bed burned down to nothing. The room is dim, cold, still very much real. You are not in a bakery, and your stomach? Hungry again. You sigh. Turnips are back on the menu. You take a moment to think. You are not just surviving on turnips. You are becoming one. Pale, round, slightly bitter, and somehow still here. Tomorrow you will try fermenting one, just to see if it does anything useful, or at least weird enough to be interesting. For now, you wrap yourself in your cloak and lie back down, belly growling softly as the wind taps the shutters like a reminder. You have made it another day. You are still breathing. And if nothing else, you now know 18 ways to prepare a root you used to ignore. You wake up with a strange sense of purpose, a rare feeling in this gray, frozen season. Maybe it is because you actually slept last night. Maybe it is the onion stew still lingering in your memory, like a half-told story. Or maybe it is the experiment. Today, you are going to try fermenting a turnip. It sounds unhinged, but hear me out. Fermentation has existed for thousands of years. By the Middle Ages, it was a prized way to stretch the life of perishables. And yes, that included root vegetables. The science behind it is mostly a mystery to you. There are no glass jars, no temperature-controlled shelves, no handy bacteria cultures. But what you do have is a clay pot, a pinch of salt scraped from the bottom of your salt pouch like treasure dust, and the stubborn determination of a person who is utterly sick of chewing raw tubers. You begin by grating a turnip. The sound it makes is damp and miserable. You add the salt, mix it all by hand, because gloves are a modern luxury, and press it down into the pot with a flat stone you found near the river last summer. You cover it with a rag and tie it off with a string of dried grass. Then you stare at it. It stares back. You set it aside and whisper a warning. Please do not kill me. This is going to take days, weeks maybe. You do not know how long, but you have time. What else do you have? Meanwhile, there is the matter of heat. With your last good log already ash, and no one in your immediate circle willing to trade firewood for anything less than meat or tools, you are forced to get creative. And so begins your crash course in non-flame warmth. First, animal heat. You do not have livestock inside your hut, but your neighbor across the path does. He has a goat and 2 chickens. You contemplate asking to borrow one for the night. The thought makes you laugh, then cough, then sigh. No, not yet. Instead, you try building a clay bed warmer. You recall an old trick you once heard at market. Heat a brick or stone in what little fire you have, then wrap it in cloth and place it under your blanket. Of course, you no longer have a fire, but you do have a brick and a weak flame. So you light a kindling fire with twigs and dried bark. Takes forever. Smokes like it is holding a grudge. But eventually, you get that stone warm. Hot even. You cradle it like a newborn, then tuck it into a pouch of wool and slide it under your straw mattress. The heat lasts maybe 20 minutes. But oh, those 20 minutes. You sit curled near it, eyes closed, face slack with bliss. It is like hugging a sunbeam. You might even drool. You forget how good warmth feels until you feel it again. When the heat fades, you are ready to cry. But hey, it worked. There are other medieval tricks too. Hanging thick cloth across doorways, piling straw against the outer walls, sleeping with your feet pointed toward the center of the room where the fire pit used to be. You try them all. They mostly help. A little. You still wake up with a layer of frost on your eyebrows, but now it is a thinner layer. Historians still argue whether heating stones were common in peasant homes or mostly reserved for monasteries and noble estates. What we do know, people used everything to stay warm. Layers of hay, dried animal dung burned slowly, even sleeping next to a warm body, human or otherwise. You do not have the latter, so you consider crafting a companion. A turnip with eyes? No, that is madness. You abandon the idea. Instead, you spend your energy insulating the corners of your room. Straw, mud, old cloth, anything to block the draft. You stuff a tunic into the window gap and pat it like it is a loyal dog. Good tunic. Stay put. By midday, the wind dies down. The cold becomes quieter, more patient. That is when it is most dangerous, when it waits. You spend the afternoon pacing. Moving helps. You sweep the floor. You sharpen your knife. You organize your turnips by size, shape, and whether or not they are showing signs of sprouting a personality. Then you check on the fermenting pot. It smells not good. You stare at it, sniff again, then immediately regret it. Your eyes water, your stomach lurches, but you do not toss it. No, this is part of the process. You think. Probably. You set the lid back on and mumble a hopeful prayer to Saint Apollonia, patron saint of things going horribly wrong in kitchens. That might not be her official title, but she will understand. Later that evening, you burn a bit of straw just for light. A luxury, but one you allow yourself. The shadows flicker across the room, making your rags look like robes and your turnip pile look like a throne. You feel briefly powerful. You boil water for tea, not real tea, of course, but a handful of dried nettles and moss. It tastes like regret, but warms your belly. As night falls, the cold creeps in again, but your bed is now better insulated, your stone brick warmer tucked beside you, and your fermented science project quietly plodding in the corner. You have made it through another day without firewood, without meat, without any food besides root vegetables and reckless hope. And honestly, you are starting to think you might survive this after all, which is unfortunate, because that means more turnips tomorrow. You wake to an unfamiliar sound, your skin cracking, not loudly, not like thunder or broken glass, more like the soft, miserable tear of parchment under strain. Your hands sting before you even open your eyes. You flex your fingers beneath the blanket and wince. Yep, the skin across your knuckles has split again. This is winter's latest gift, fissures. You sit up slowly, the stiff wool of your cloak dragging like chainmail. Your elbows ache, your knees complain. You run a hand across your cheek and feel the tiny, raised edge of a fresh crack beneath your eye. Dry air, cold wind, no oil, no balm. Your skin is tired of pretending to be skin. You slide to the edge of your bed and reach for your water bowl. It is half ice. Of course it is. You crack the top layer, dip your fingers, and gently press the freezing water against the worst of the splits. It does not help. It just hurts differently. You are not alone in this. Medieval winters were notorious for turning people's skin into brittle maps of suffering. Without moisturizers or petroleum jelly, peasants used lard, suet, and even fish oil to try and soothe their skin. You have none of those. The closest thing in your hut is a chunk of beeswax from last spring's candle making. You scrape a bit off and rub it into your palms. It is sticky and smells faintly of smoke and regret, but it works. Slightly. You wrap your hands in a strip of old linen and tug on your cloak. Time for the day's march, because every walk outside in winter is a march. You are not strolling. You are not wandering. You are braving an environment that actively wants you gone. First destination, the outhouse. You delay it as long as possible, but nature, as always, wins. You layer up 3 shirts, 2 tunics, 1 cloak, and head out. The path is ice, not snow, not slush, ice. You step carefully, testing each footfall like a knight checking for hidden traps. Your boots slip, your arms flail. You curse. This is not a pleasant errand. The outhouse is 20 feet away, but feels like a siege. You reach it, breathe in deeply bad idea, and crouch over the hole. This is where things get bleak. In the dead of winter, outhouse freeze. The seat is a block of frost. The smell is confusing, somehow worse than usual. Your skin touches the wood and immediately regrets it. You finish as fast as possible, clean yourself with last autumn's moss stash, and stumble back indoors with the dignity of someone who survived a war they never agreed to fight. Historians still argue whether peasants in Northern Europe had separate outhouses or simply used chamber pots in winter. One thing is certain: nobody enjoyed their toilet options. There were no heated floors, no scented candles, just cold shame and a breeze in places a breeze should never be. Back inside, you build a fire, just kindling and twigs today. You will save your half log for a real crisis. You warm your hands over the tiny flame like a wizard conjuring power. Your fingertips pulse with pins and needles as the circulation creeps back in. Your food today, you guessed it, turnip. You roast slices over the fire and pretend they are chips. They are not. They are warm, though, and that is a miracle in itself. You chew slowly, using the rhythm to distract yourself from your cracked lips and aching joints. Later, you try to clean, not out of energy. There is none of that, but out of habit. You sweep the floor. You organize your basket of turnips by softness. You shift the straw in the corners to keep the rats guessing. It is busy work, but it keeps you from thinking too long about how your hands are falling apart. You spend the afternoon sitting near the tiny fire, rubbing beeswax into your knuckles and muttering idle curses at the wind. You talk to your shoes, to the spoon, to the walls. It feels normal now. Then, just before dusk, you notice something. Your toenail. One of them. It is purple. Not in a fun, royal jewel kind of way. In a maybe this is dying kind of way. You sit down hard and peel off your boot. Your sock, singular, is crusted to your foot. You pull it free, wincing as it takes some skin with it. Your toes look wrong, bloated, pale. The purple one pulses faintly. You mutter a few words you are pretty sure your priest would not approve of and gently prod it. It is numb. That is bad. You grab some cloth, wrap the toe, and elevate it on a bundle of rags. Maybe it is frostbite. Maybe it is just bruised. You have no idea. All you know is that you cannot walk far tomorrow. This is how it happens. Not all at once. Not with drama. Just slowly. One finger, one toe, one cracked lip at a time. Still, you eat. You drink a little hot water. You check on the fermentation pot. Still smells like a haunted vinegar bottle. You go to sleep early. As you lie down, you look at your hands. Wrapped, cracked, trembling slightly. You whisper, "Just get me through one more day." Winter is winning, but you are still playing. Barely. You wake in the middle of the night with a pressure in your stomach that cannot be ignored. No, not hunger, you know that kind of ache too well. And this one is different. Lower, urgent, dreadful. You sit up slowly, the brittle straw mattress crunching beneath you. Your toe, the purple one, screams a little. but you manage to hobble upright. The fire is long dead. The room is pure black, except for the faint gray line where the shutters do not fully meet. You wrap your cloak around you, grab your stick, the one you carved with a notch every time the temperature dropped below sanity, and open the door. The wind hits you like a slap. It is not just cold, it is angry. The kind of wind that bends trees and shouts through your ears like it is trying to tear thoughts out of your skull. You squint against it and press forward, one limp foot at a time, toward the outhouse. It has never felt farther away. You pass the woodpile. What remains of it? Just splinters. Really? You press onward. Every breath burns your lungs. Your boots crunch across the hard snow. Your cloak tangles in your legs. You curse softly with each step, and then you reach it. The door is stuck, frozen shut. Of course it is. You set your stick down and use both hands, cracking the thin rim of ice around the edges with your numb fingers. The door groans open. You crouch, quickly, clumsily, and do what must be done. The cold on your skin is indescribable. It goes beyond discomfort into something primal. You feel your soul trying to escape your body, like, we are not doing this, please no. But you finish, you stand, you rewrap yourself, and you stumble back inside without bothering to close the door. You collapse near the hearth, coughing. Your hands shake. Your teeth chatter so hard you feel them rattle inside your skull. You curl in on yourself and rock slightly. This is winter at its most personal. Historians still argue whether medieval people used chamber pots consistently in winter, or if trudging to the privy was still the norm. Either way, it was a gamble, and in this moment, you understand why. That short walk just shaved a day off your life. You fall asleep again just before dawn. You're back to the hearth, your cloak wrapped around your shoulders like a bat's wings. The dreams come quickly, strange ones. Something about turnips growing legs and dancing out of the cellar. You do not question it. Later, the sun, such as it is, rises. It paints the room a pale blue. You wake slowly, joints aching, head pounding. Your toe feels slightly better, or maybe it is just numb again. Either way, you can stand. Breakfast? You guessed it, turnip. But you spice it up, figuratively, with a pinch of dried mustard seed you had forgotten about in a jar behind your water jug. You mash the turnip, add hot water, and sprinkle in the seed. It tastes sharp, hot, almost, like a threat. You love it. You eat slowly. You do not talk today, not even to the spoon. Later, you try to patch the outhouse door. You nail a bit of leather across the inside, hoping it will keep out some of the snow. It probably will not, but it feels like progress. Then you set about your big task, building a windbreak, just a little one, just for the path from your door to the outhouse. A small wall made of stacked lugs, broken fencing, and even an old washtub turned sideways to deflect the gusts. You spend hours arranging it. Your fingers bleed through the linen wraps. Your breath hangs in the air like little ghosts. But when you test it just once, you feel it. A small, still pocket where the wind stops, where the cold is a little less feral. You stand there and smile like a fool. That night, you finally light your half log. It burns slow and sweet. The smell is rich, like pine and patience. You roast turnip slices again. You hum a tune you barely remember, something about geese and love and summer. You check the fermentation pot. It smells less awful, still weird, but more like food and less like a curse. You let the fire burn down naturally, watching the glow fade like the end of a dream. You think about how many people used to live in your village. 12 families once. Now, 4 huts still smoke. You wonder how the others are doing. You wonder if any of them have mustard seed. You sleep well that night. No outhouse emergency. No wind clawing at your walls. Just warmth, however brief, and the quiet knowledge that you built something. A windbreak, a meal, a day. You're still here. Barely, but you are. Morning arrives in the slow, sulky way it always does in winter. The light outside the shutters is barely light, just a paler shade of gray. You are stiff, but you slept, and that is a win. Your toe, astonishingly, still exists. The pain has dulled to a vague awareness. You decide that probably means it is not going to fall off. The first thing you do today, before even touching the turnips, is listen. You tilt your head. No wind. No wind. It is unsettling, like walking into a room and realizing the birds have gone silent. You step outside and look around. The sky is heavy, swollen with clouds the color of old wool. Snow hangs in the air, thick and slow, falling like it has nowhere better to be. That is when you hear it, a bell, faint, distant, dull, the church bell. Your first thought is that someone died. Your second thought, no one rings the bell in winter unless someone important dies or something big is happening, and it is not a feast day. You would know. You are counting the days obsessively now, the way a prisoner counts bricks in the wall. You limp across the frozen path, snow clinging to the hem of your cloak like it wants to pull you down. At the church, a handful of villagers have gathered, faces red with cold, hoods drawn tight. Even Thorn is there, looking like someone who has not seen his own shadow in weeks. Father Melwyn stands in the doorway, lips blue, beard rimmed with frost. He announces the obvious. No more tithes until Lent. You blink. It is a small sentence, but it hits you like a plank to the chest. No more tithes. No more sacks of grain taken from households already empty. No more turnips handed over in the name of heaven. The church has, miraculously, decided not to push the peasants this winter. Someone claps. It is half-hearted, gloved. You shuffle back to your hut in silence, a strange feeling settling into your chest, relief, and then resentment, because guess what? The church does not ring bells for turnips. You survived on root vegetables and your own stubborn will. Heaven did not send you soup. And now, when the tithes are gone, you are left with your shrinking pile of tubers and no thanks. You boil 2 today. That is your act of rebellion. 2 turnips, sliced thick, mashed, and mixed with the last shavings of onion. It feels decadent. While it cooks, you try to remember the last feast day you actually enjoyed. You used to mark the saints' days with candles, bread, sometimes dried fruit if you were lucky. On the day of St. Bridget, your mother would warm milk with honey, just a little, and pour it over soaked oats. You can almost taste it. Now, the bell rings only for survival. Historians still argue whether church influence helped or harmed rural communities during harsh winters. Some records show monks distributing soup and bread to the starving. Others suggest the church continued to collect tithes long after it became cruel. You have no historians here, just turnips and empty hands. You decide to visit your fermentation pot. Again, it is working. Sort of. You lift the cloth. The scent is still sharp, vinegar, and something wild, but your stomach does not twist at the smell anymore. That is something. You scoop out a spoonful, just a taste. It crunches, sour, alive. You chew slowly. It is edible. You grin like a madman. Fermented turnip. You have created something new, something unboiled. You decide to ration it, just a little each day. You seal the pot and whisper something like a prayer, but rougher. After dinner, you sit by the dark hearth and think about the bell. It rings out over the empty fields. It used to mean celebration. Now it just reminds you that there is no bread left to break. Still, your belly is warm. Your breath is steady. And outside, the snow continues to fall without urgency, like it knows it has all the time in the world. Before bed, you gather some ash from the hearth and rub it into the cracks in your hands. It is an old trick, barely effective, but it dries out the bleeding and adds a weird kind of armor. Ash and beeswax, your new skin. You lie down early. The fermented turnip sits in your gut like a secret. You survive the bell, the church, and the ache of watching people gather for something that does not include a miracle. Tomorrow is not a feast day, but tonight, for once, you are not starving. The snow does not stop. It keeps falling all night, blanketing everything like nature's way of saying, you are not going anywhere. By morning, the world is mute. No birds, no wind, not even the usual creaks and groans of the trees outside. Just the dull silence of a world buried. You wake warm, which should be a comfort, but it is not. It is suspicious. You lie still under your cloak and feel the air on your face, thick, still, and oddly, not freezing. That can only mean one thing. You sit up, shuffle to the door, and open it. A wall of white stares back. Snow has drifted halfway up your doorway. Your porch, such as it is gone. The path to the outhouse, gone. The woodpile, deep beneath a crust of snow, so thick you would need a pickaxe just to reach the top log. You stare at it for a long time, blinking into the bright, endless white, and then you laugh. It is not a happy laugh. It is the laugh of someone who knows they have officially been outwitted by the weather. You close the door and sigh. Inside, it is dim. The shutters barely admit light, but at least the snow outside is insulating your little hut, acting like a giant white blanket. That is the good news. The bad news? You are snowed in. Properly. And not for a few hours. Probably for days. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant homes were ever fully snowed in. or if regular foot traffic kept paths clear enough, even in deep winter. But they probably did not deal with this exact kind of collapse, the kind where your shovel broke 3 weeks ago, and you never replaced it because, well, you spent your last coin on onions. So now what? First, check supplies. You count your turnips again. 15, plus the fermented stash. Enough to last a little over a week if you stay careful. You ration water. You eye the straw and start thinking about which pile might make a decent fire if you get truly desperate. Second, bodily needs. You get creative. A clay pot, some moss, an awkward corner of the room. No one is proud. This is survival. You scrape some ash over the pot like you are seasoning a stew and move on. Third, movement. You cannot just lie down and wait. You pace. You stretch. You stomp your feet to keep the blood moving, especially to that half-dead toe that still refuses to return to full color. You rub your limbs, rotate your shoulders, whisper to yourself, make lists out loud, anything to keep your mind from freezing before your body does. By midday, hunger strikes. You boil 1 turnip, thin slices. You flavor it with brine from the fermenting pot, just enough to wake your mouth up. You chew slowly, deliberately, imagining it is something else. A roasted partridge, a bowl of stew, a meat pie. Your jaw moves slower, as if your mouth is unsure whether it is worth the effort. Afterwards, you curl near the hearth, even though there is no fire. You remember a story you once heard. A man who stayed snowed in so long he started naming his turnips, gave each one a little personality, talked to them as he decided which to eat next. You thought it was ridiculous at the time. Now, you look at your pile. One of them does look smug. You throw a piece of cloth over it and mutter a threat. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The light through the shutter fades to blue, then gray, then black. You light a sliver of candle, the last inch of tallow you have. It burns low and greasy, casting dancing shadows across the walls. You stare at them until your eyes blur. You think about warmth, about summer, about bare feet in warm mud, and bees buzzing around wildflowers, and the crunch of apples in your teeth. You try to summon the feeling in your bones. It does not come. You wrap yourself tighter and drift off. You wake up biting your tongue. The candle is gone. The snow outside presses against your door like a threat. Still, you are alive. You did not suffocate. The turnips are still there. You are not naming them yet, but the silence now has weight. And you know, this is the part of winter that breaks people. Not the cold, not the hunger, the nothing, the stillness, the waiting. So you whisper to the dark, just to prove you are still here. Day 1, you say aloud, let's see who cracks first. You mark the door with your fingernail. 1 scratch, crooked, shallow, across the beam beside the latch. Day 1 of being snowed in. You stare at it for a long time, then make a second mark next to it. That one is for emphasis, or maybe defiance. You are not sure. The snow still presses against the hut. You can hear the creaks now, timbers shifting beneath the weight. It is not threatening, not yet. But the groan of old wood carries a specific tone. Do not test me. You do what people always do when they are trapped. You clean. First, you rearrange your turnips again, this time by density. You knock each one against the wooden floor gently, rating the dullness of the sound. Hollow equal bad, solid equal good. You push the hollow ones to one side and label them mentally as soon. Then you tidy your rag collection. Fold, refold, refold. You shake out your cloak. You comb the straw mattress with a stick. You rewrap your cracked hands. You check the fermentation pot. Still alive, still sour, still weirdly comforting. By mid-morning, the nothingness returns. No light, no visitors, no duties. You are forced to sit. You hate it. Sitting with nothing to do is a dangerous game in winter. The cold is not what breaks you, it is the voice in your head. Soft at first, then louder. Why are you doing this? What if the snow never melts? What if the turnips turn on you? You try to distract yourself. You sing badly. You recite old prayers you half remember. You whisper every saint's name, like a roll call of invisible friends. Then you remember something. The story stones. Your mother taught you. You search beneath the floorboards, near the corner where you once buried a mouse out of respect. There, in a little cloth pouch, are 6 flat stones. Each one has a mark scratched into it. A bird, a knife, a tree, a fish, a crown, a crescent moon. You draw one from the bag and build a story around it, out loud. First, the crown. You begin slowly. A king, trapped in his castle by snow. No servants, no food, no wine, only turnips. You pause. You smile. You are not the king. You are the jester. And somehow, the jester survives. Next, the knife. The king tries to eat the jester. The jester outsmarts him. There is dancing. There is poetry. The king dies of pride, or turnip poisoning, or both. The jester eats him. You laugh loudly. You almost cry from laughing. This is how people stay sane. They build myths from scraps. They keep company with stones and shadows. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had games or storytelling practices for isolation periods. But oral tradition certainly thrived during winter, when there was little else to do. Storytelling kept minds sharp and souls warm. You understand that now. After your game, you eat. Fermented turnip again, mixed with boiled slices. The sourness feels sharper today, almost too sharp. You cough through the first few bites, then get used to it. It is not delicious. It is survival. Then, you do something stupid. You climb onto the bench near the door, open the shutter a crack, and poke your arm into the snow wall. It is dense, wet, cold enough to sting your fingers immediately. You pull them back in and shake them dry. But in that moment, you are sure of something. The snow is compacting, which means thaw is coming. Slowly, maybe, but it is coming. Hope creeps into your chest. You immediately try to stamp it out. Hope is dangerous. It makes you soft, but still, hope. You spend the afternoon preparing. You chop up a few turnips and dry the slices by the fire pit. You are out of wood, yes, but the pit still holds heat from the earlier ember scrape. You lay them on a hot stone, rotate them every hour. It will not preserve them fully, but it might stretch them a day or two longer. You also reshape your bedding, move it farther from the wall, create a tighter nest, more straw against the wind. Your hands crack again while working. You ignore the pain. You burn the last of your candle before sundown, just to see the room properly for 1 hour. It is your luxury, your little bonfire. The flame flickers across the walls, the shadows stretch and soften. For once, your hut does not feel like a tomb. It feels like a cave, protective, ancient, yours. You talk to the turnips before bed. Not all of them, just the big one. You name it Sir Rootsworth. You tell it the story of the jester and the king. It listens in silence. That night, your dreams are strange again. You walk through snow barefoot, carrying a lantern filled with fermented turnip brine. You follow a trail of tiny footprints, your own, but backwards. They lead to your own hut. Inside, someone else is sleeping in your bed. You wake with your hand on your knife. It is still dark, but you are still here. The snow will melt. Sir Rootsworth is still intact, and tomorrow is waiting. The snow begins to shift. It is not dramatic. There is no avalanche, no thunderous collapse. Just a sound, soft, subtle, like sand sliding down a bell. You sit up in bed and hold your breath. There it is again. A tiny creak from the rafters, a sigh from the shutters, the almost imperceptible crackle of melting ice. You throw off your cloak and press your hand to the door. It is damp. You smile. Outside, the sun is still invisible, but something warmer has moved into the air, like the ghost of spring has brushed against the earth. You are not fooled. It is still winter, still brutal, but the siege might be lifting. First task of the day, dig. You gather your tools, such as they are: a broken stool leg, a dented pot lid, and sheer desperation. You scrape at the snow blocking the door, carving out handfuls and dumping them into your water basin. Slow work, painful on the knuckles, but you are moving snow. That means something. Eventually, you wedge the door open just enough to squeeze through. Outside is a different world. The white expanse still rules everything, but it looks softer. The edges of the drifts have slumped slightly, like old soldiers lowering their spears. You breathe in the cold, and it smells wet, not dry, not bitter, just clean. You hobble to your windbreak, the patchy little wall of scrap wood and pride. It survived, barely. A section has caved in, but the main post still stands. You pat it like an old friend. The outhouse door is also slightly ajar, having warped from the freeze-thaw. You consider fixing it, but your stomach growls. Priorities. Back inside, you boil the dried turnip slices you prepared earlier. They rehydrate into leathery slivers, chewy, and weirdly sweet. It is like eating soft bark, but bark with a backstory. You pair it with a spoonful of the fermented turnip for balance, sour and sharp against the sweetness. You chew thoughtfully and realize something. This is good, not feast good, not merchant market stall with cheese samples good, but you good, like you made it. You scrape the bowl clean. As you finish, you notice the sunlight peeking through the shutters for the first time in days. Actual sun. Weak, watery, but real. Historians still argue whether the thaw days were as sudden and symbolic as the stories claim. Some old chronicles speak of a single bright morning when birds returned and snow vanished in hours. Others suggest a long, muddy grind. You suspect it is the latter, but the symbolism still works. The real turning point, though, is not the sun. It is the rats. One pokes its nose out from behind your storage basket, sniffs, and darts away. You blink. That is new. You had not seen a rat in over a week. They had gone deeper underground, or possibly frozen. But now they are moving. That means they smell something. That means they feel the too. You check the basket. 2 turnips are spoiled. You saw the signs. Black patches, weeping skin. But now they are fully lost. You wrap them in straw and toss them outside. A funeral of sorts. You do not grieve. They served their purpose. Later, you venture to Thorn's hut. You knock. No answer. You knock again, louder this time. Then push the door open slightly. Thorn is inside, sitting beside his fire pit. His son is asleep, wrapped in layers. Thorn looks thinner, much thinner. You notice his eyes tracking your movement, slow but alert. You offer a wrapped slice of your dried turnip. He stares. Then he takes it, breaks off half, and hands it to the boy without a word. You do not stay. You are not here for conversation, just presence. Back home, you begin planning. Not just surviving, planning. You scratch a list into the inside of your door with a nail. Check pit. Make more dried slices. Save last beeswax lump. Trade for salt. Find out if anyone still has a goat. You feel dangerous with a list. Like a merchant. Like a person who will see spring. That evening, you light a single sliver of wood. Just enough for warmth. You do not need it, but you want it. And that is a new feeling. Wanting something without needing it. You sit by the fire and inspect your hands. They are rough, cracked, calloused in places you never expected. But stronger. You're stronger. You survived 10 days on turnips, cold air, and spite. You rest your head against the wall and close your eyes. And for the first time in weeks, your last thought is not about food. It is about what comes next. You wake to birdsong. At first, you think it is part of a dream, something invented by your half-frozen brain. But then you hear it again, clear and fluting, high above the roof. A bird, alive, singing, in your part of the world. You lie in bed with your mouth slightly open, as if the sound itself is nourishment. It does not last long, just a few bars before silence returns, but it is enough to change the flavor of the day. You get up slowly, your limbs aching less than they did a week ago. Your toe? It still looks like something from a saint's warning tapestry, but at least it is no longer purple, just a kind of angry mauve. That feels like progress. Outside, the snow has started to break. The packed drifts along the path are softer now, melting from the edges. You jab a stick into one and watch it sink through a few inches before stopping. That is more give than you have seen in days. You do not want to get too excited. This is not spring. This is a false thought. A brief, smug little smile from the sky before it slaps you again. Still, you are not above taking the win. You decide it is a trading day. Time to check on the others to see what, if anything, they have and need. You gather your offering: 2 dried turnip slices, 1 spoonful of fermented mash, and a sealed gourd, and your last intact scrap of wool, a bit of cloak lining you had cut off before winter bit hard. It is not much, but then nothing is. Your first stop is Widow Marn's hut. Her roof collapsed 2 weeks ago, and she has been living in the corner of her nephew's place. She answers the door looking worse than you expected, thin, eyes ringed with shadow, but she smiles when she sees the turnip slices. You dried them? She asks, incredulous. You nod. I can trade, she says, disappearing for a moment and returning with a hunk of stale barley bread. It is rock hard, but you know exactly what to do with it. You accept it like it is gold. This is how trade works now. No coins, no markets, no shouting merchants, just cold hands, slow nods, and a mutual understanding that we are still here. Next stop, Jorund. You approach with caution. Jorund has always been the most suspicious of the villagers. Tall, silent, missing 2 fingers from an old axe accident, and never quite unclenching. But he lets you in. You trade the wool scrap for a small lump of tallow wrapped in leaves. It is for lighting, not eating, he says grimly. You nod and slip it into your pouch. As you head back toward your hut, you stop by the woods, just near the edge, where the trees look like they are whispering to each other. There, in the shadow of a frozen log, you find it. A green shoot, tiny, fragile, almost ashamed of itself, but real. A bit of green pushing up through the gray slush, defying everything. You do not touch it. You just crouch and stare. Historians still argue whether the first shoots of spring brought any actual hope to medieval peasants, or if it was simply another reminder that the real hunger season, the lean months between winter's end and the first full harvest, was just beginning. But right now, to you, that sprout is a flag, a symbol, a flickering middle finger aimed at winter. You smile, then laugh out loud, the kind of laugh that cracks your lips and sends a sharp sting across your face. But it is real. Back at your hut, you get to work. You reboil the barley bread until it softens enough to chew. You add turnip brine and mash into it. Stir until it becomes a kind of porridge. It smells odd, not bad, just unfamiliar. You eat it slowly, savoring every confused texture. You spend the afternoon drying more turnip slices, rotating them over stones you warmed in the sun. You scrape and salt the inside of your storage gourd to make it ready for more fermentation. You clean your bedding with ash and snow and hang it up outside to dry, just for an hour. You are building routines again. At night, you light the tallow lump. The room glows faintly, a soft yellow that flickers like candlelight should. It is your new hearth. You stare at the wall, at your tally marks. 11 scratches now, some crooked, some faint, but each one is a day. You feel proud in a quiet, bitter way, not triumphant, not celebratory, just you are still here. You crawl into bed and pull the cloak around your shoulders. Outside, the snow crackles as it melts. Somewhere in the dark, a second bird joins the first. You smile. Tomorrow will still be hard, but you are ready for it. The next day begins with something wild. You sweat, not from fever or panic or some rot bubbling up from within, but from work, honest to goodness exertion. You wake early, spot a break in the clouds, and decide, this is a gathering day. The snow is softening. The air has that rare stillness before a shift, and your body, for once, feels like cooperating. You chew through a quick bowl of thin turnip mash, more water than root, but it gives you enough fuel. You grab your stick, your sack, and a few strips of linen you might trade, then step out into the cold. It does not bite like before. It nips. You begin walking the perimeter of the village. The snow's icy crust has weakened, but underneath, it still holds surprises. You learn quickly to test every step, jabbing ahead with your stick like a blind monk. Sometimes your foot sinks halfway down, sometimes not at all. It is like navigating a field of sleeping animals. Your goal: forage. It sounds absurd in winter, but you have learned to see differently. Dead trees sometimes hide edible bark. Near the chapel wall, where rainwater always pools, you spot a patch of chickweed, scraggly, frostbitten, but alive. You whisper a thank you to no one in particular and pick every last green stem. By the stream, you find cattail roots, muddy, frozen in places, but diggable. You pull 3 long ones, scrape them clean with the back of your knife, and wrap them in cloth. They are stringy and taste like sadness, but they are calories. And then, under a collapsed fence, you find a miracle: a turnip, small, round, and half frozen into the ground like it was trying to hibernate, left behind, probably, when someone fled or forgot. You cradle it like a child. Later, you stop by Alice's hut. She answers the door with a look that says no thanks, but softens when she sees your sack. You trade half the chickweed for a half-broken comb and 3 crushed garlic cloves. She has kept them in waxed cloth for months. They smell like fire and heaven. As you head home, your sack heavier than it has been all winter, you notice something strange. People are moving, not just 1 or 2, 4, maybe 5. Children clearing snow from steps. A man pushing a sled toward the woods. Widow Marn sitting outside on an overturned bucket, her hands wrapped around a mug that probably just holds hot water. But still, she is outside. It feels like a shifting tide. Historians still argue whether communities bounce back quickly after harsh winters, or if the trauma lingered for years. Some records describe spontaneous village celebrations after the first successful thaw. Others note months of hesitation, fear of false springs. You feel the second version, but you see glimmers of the first. Back at your hut, you prepare a stew. Chickweed, garlic, cattail root, and Because you're bold, a chunk of turnip. You boil them slow, stirring with the careful reverence of a monk mixing ink. The smell is wild, herbal, pungent, alive. You eat half, save the rest. You are learning restraint. Then, inspired by the day's success, you try something reckless. You sing, not to yourself, not under your breath, out loud, a nonsense song. The kind your grandfather once made up while drunk on barley beer. It has no tune, no structure, just words like crackle root and mud fingers and snow belly. You laugh through the second verse. Sir Rootsworth, still unspoiled, sits beside the hearth like a silent judge. You bow deeply to him and announce your new title, Chief Turnip Forager of the Eastern Slope. He does not reply. You take that as acceptance. That evening, you carve a spoon, not because you need it, your old one still works, but because your hands want purpose. You take a chunk of firewood you had been saving for desperate days and whittle it down slowly. By candlelight, the shape emerges, simple, rough, but real. It is your winter spoon. You tuck it into your belt like a badge. Before bed, you tally again. 12 scratches now. You stare at them for a long while, then add a new mark, just above the door. A little curved line. A symbol. Your symbol. It looks like a cracked turnip, but to you, it means today mattered. The snow still falls lightly outside, but it is lazy now, more curious than hostile. You lie down with your cloak tucked around your shoulders. The stew in your belly feels like armor, and just before sleep takes you, you whisper aloud, I remember what food used to taste like, and you smile, because now you do not just remember, you imagine. It begins with dripping, soft, rhythmic, almost apologetic. You open your eyes slowly, disoriented by the sound. For a moment, it feels like summer rain. Then you realize it is your roof, leaking. You roll out of bed and crawl toward the corner, where a steady trickle of meltwater is seeping through a crack in the thatch. You press your hand against the floorboards. Damp. The snow above is finally liquefying, soaking its way into everything. You place a bowl beneath the drip and listen to it fill, slowly, steadily, like a heartbeat. Each drop echoes in your chest. Change is happening. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders and open the door. Outside, it is pure slush. The once silent white has turned to something softer, wet, dirty, sluggish. Your path to the outhouse is a mud trench. The windbreak has collapsed entirely, its posts leaning like drunks. But the air is mild. You can smell the earth again. It is not a pleasant smell, more rot and old roots than flowers, but it is real. You inhale deeply. The ice in your chest begins to crack. You spend the morning doing what everyone in the village seems to be doing: repair. You pack new thatch into the leaking spot, using dry straw from your bedding. Sacrifice. You wedge a piece of curved bark over the beam as a makeshift gutter. It is ugly. It works. Then you sort your remaining turnips. Not bad. Not great. You toss the softest one into your compost pit, which, truthfully, is just a hole behind the hut you pretend to forget about. You scrape the rest clean and arrange them by size. Sir Rootsworth remains the prize. You polish his skin with a rag. He beams with smug, broody confidence. You roast a few slices on hot stones. No firewood, just sun-warmed rocks placed strategically near your window sliver. It takes forever. The results are chewy, but edible. You dip them in fermented mash. You chew slowly. In the afternoon, you hear voices, real ones, laughing. You limp outside and follow the sound to the edge of the woods. There, you find a handful of children sliding down a slushy hill on bark slabs. Their laughter is half hysterical, half frozen, but it's joy. Their parents sit nearby, sharing hot water and scraps. You sit with them. No one speaks at first, just the fire cracking, the laughter echoing, the shared understanding we made it to this moment. Someone passes a handful of dried peas. You trade a spoon of garlic chickweed mash for 5. The math feels sacred. You pocket them like treasure. Historians still argue whether medieval communities truly celebrated during thaw or simply endured it, since it marked the beginning of what many called the starvation season. But today feels like a celebration, even if it is just mud and roasted bark and kids shrieking like goblins. That evening, you return home with wet feet, a sore knee, and a full heart. You boil the peas with a slice of turnip, making the most flavorful bowl of broth you have had in weeks. You sip slowly, eyes closed. Later, you take out your tally stick, the new one you carved just yesterday, and etch a curved line beneath today's mark. A little crescent. It means something changed. You watch the last light fade outside your shutters. The snow is no longer piled. It is pooled, puddled, hesitant to stay. You see the tips of grass in some places, a few scattered stones, the bones of the earth showing through. Inside, the air is warmer. You unfasten your cloak and let it fall beside your bed. You no longer need to sleep wrapped like a corpse. You crawl onto your straw and lie on your side, facing the wall. Sir Rootsworth watches from his shelf. You are next, you whisper. He accepts this with dignity, and then you sleep, belly full of broth, roof patched, heart thawed. By the time you open your eyes, the drip has stopped, your roof held. The floor is damp, but manageable. Outside, it is not snowing, not raining either, just misting, the kind of sky sweat that soaks your hood, but never quite counts as weather. You sit up, stretch, and, without meaning to, yawn. It surprises you, not from hunger, not from cold, just tiredness, normal tiredness. You rub your eyes, feeling strangely human. It is a new sensation, this brushing against normality. You look around your hut and see something else unexpected. Space, clarity. It is not tidy, not by any stretch, but the piles are lower. The chaos has shape. You are living here now, not hiding. Breakfast is humble, thin brine, and a sliver of the turnip you swore you would not eat yet. Not Sir Rootsworth, of course. The one next to him. Sir Rootsworth merely watches, glistening in the morning gloom. You eat slowly, then step outside. The village smells alive, muddy, mushy, but no longer dead. You see patches of black earth underfoot, puddles in wagon ruts, dogs sniffing about, wet to the ribs. Someone is cutting thatch. Someone else is dragging a sled full of sticks. The world is moving again. And then, at the center of the green, smoke, not just from a chimney, a proper fire, with a ring of stones, dry twigs, the works, and around it, people, talking, trading, haggling in low, raspy voices, like frogs relearning how to croak. It is the first real gathering since the snow came. You approach slowly, uncertain. Your sack is nearly empty. You bring a strip of linen and one of your few dried turnip slices. You are not here to shop, just to be. Elis is there, selling tinctures. Thorn has a pile of rabbit skins, not fresh, but still trade-worthy. Widow Marn is offering boiled water with dried mint if you bring your own cup. You end up sitting beside a boy named Ferret. That is not his name, obviously, but everyone calls him that, and he answers to it. He is selling snail shells and a beetle on a string. You trade him a button. He gives you nothing. It is a fair exchange. The fire is smoky. Your eyes sting. Someone is telling a story, loud, theatrical, about a knight who challenged a bear to a drinking contest. It is absurd. The punchline involves honey, chainmail, and a broken wine barrel. You laugh. Everyone does. And in that moment, something lifts. Not the weather, not the weight of the world, but the silence. It breaks. You had not realized how deep it went, how far inside it had crawled. Historians still argue whether communal fires were actually encouraged in late winter, or if resources were too scarce to waste on warmth for laughter's sake. But there is no arguing this. It matters. The fire today matters. You trade for a piece of bark that smells like applewood. It will not burn long, but you slip it into your pouch like a relic. You also overhear something unexpected. Goat born last night. You turn. The speaker is a tall girl with a swollen lip and more confidence than warmth. She says it again. Her family's goat, pregnant since Michaelmas, finally gave birth. You feel a jolt. Milk. Not now. Not today. But soon. A few weeks, maybe less. And where there is milk, there might be cheese. Butter, even. You do not even like butter, but you suddenly crave it. You return to your hut feeling rich. That night, you light the bark. It smokes like a confused candle, but the scent is real, fruity, sweet in a woodsy, lost kind of way. You whisper to it like a guest. You update your tally. 14 scratches. This time, you draw a tiny flame beside the mark. Then you boil snow melt with a pinch of dried mint from Widow Marn. It tastes like leaving winter behind. You stare at Sir Rootsworth for a long time before bed. You tell him he might be the last one, and he looks proud. You dream of green, not grass exactly, something stranger, taller, wilder, fields of weeds and vines, and twisting stems taller than your head, all swaying in warm air that hums like bee song. You walk through it barefoot, your cloak left behind somewhere. You are holding a basket. It is full of turnips. You awake laughing. The room is cold, but not cruel. You can see your breath, but it is thinner now, like a ghost sigh. You stretch, stand, and listen. The snowmelt dripping from your roof has slowed, replaced by the occasional creak of the hut settling back into place. Outside, the world is gray and brown instead of white. Your first thought, water run. No more melting snow in bowls. Today, you will go to the stream. You pack a clay jug wrapped in cloth, grab your walking stick, and set off. The ground is half mud, half ice. You slide a few times, curse once, but you do not fall. The stream is still partly frozen, but along the bank, there is a narrow trickle running free. You kneel, scoop, and fill your jug. The water is sharp and tastes like stone, but it is clean. You take a long drink and sit for a while, watching the surface. A leaf floats past, then a dead beetle, then something green, a little blade of grass. Not from here, carried downstream from higher up, where spring is pushing harder. You let it drift past your fingers. You do not stop it. You just witness. Back at the village, things have shifted again. Someone is boiling bones in a pot. Someone else is splitting firewood with a blunt axe, taking turns with a boy too small for the task. You see a girl walking past with an armful of reeds, sleeping mats, maybe, or kindling. You notice, for the first time in weeks, someone sweeping, actually sweeping, brushing filth from their doorstep like it matters again. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had the energy or reason to maintain personal cleanliness during the hunger season, but scattered references suggest that when spring felt close, even small rituals of tidiness returned. You understand now. Sweeping is hope. Sweeping says, I believe something is coming back. You join in. You scrape the muddy sludge from your own doorway. Toss the worst of it into the lane. You shake out your cloak. You even brush the dust from the rafters with a bundled straw swab. You wipe down the shelf where Sir Rootsworth rests. He nods silently. You decide, it is time to plant. Not properly, not yet, but a gesture. You take the worst of your spoiled turnips, the one that smells faintly of vinegar and shame, and slice it open. Inside, soft white flesh. You find a pit near the edge of your hut, dig through the damp mud with your hands, and bury it. Just a husk, but a symbolic one. You whisper something over it. Not a prayer, not a plan, just a word. Next, you stand up dirty and grinning. Later, you find Joran by the chapel. He is dragging broken fence posts into a pile. You ask, without asking, and he tosses you one. Together, you build a new barrier. Not a wall, exactly, but a frame. Something to define the space where the herb garden will go. If you survive that long. He says nothing. Neither do you. That night, you do something foolish. You roast a whole turnip, not a slice, not a shaving, a whole one. You salt it lightly with the last pinch from your pouch and wrap it in cloth to slow the burn. You set it on hot stones and turn it like a treasure. When it is ready, You eat it with your hands. It is sweet, caramelized, almost creamy. You make sounds that should not be made over root vegetables. You cry a little, not for the turnip, for everything else. The silence, the noise, the way things are slowly, quietly returning. You tally another mark. 15. This one gets a dot beside it. A seed. You fall asleep with roasted sweetness on your breath, hands still crusted with soil, and a smile tucked beneath your ribs. You wake before dawn, not because of cold, not hunger either, because of light. A strange, pale wash seeps in through the shutters. You squint, step outside, and there it is, a full moon, impossibly clear, floating above a sky swept clean of clouds. The snow has thinned to patches. The air bites, but only lightly, like a puppy testing its teeth. You stand in your doorway, barefoot, breath pluming, and watch the moon. Everything is still. You feel something settle in your chest. Not joy, not even peace, just acceptance. You are still here. So is the world. Neither of you asked for this, but you both endured. You go back inside and begin your day slowly. The last of the mint water is lukewarm in your pot. You drink it with reverence. You decide to stretch your food as far as you can now, delaying the final turnips. Sir Rootsworth is still untouched. He gleams with smugness on the shelf. You give him a little bow. Outside, the village is changing again. Smoke from chimneys rises higher now, longer. It means fires are being tended, not just sparked and left to burn out. People are cooking, talking. Someone is hammering. It is Osric, the carpenter. He is patching his roof with fresh wood. You stop and help, unasked. You hold the ladder. You fetch the next plank. He grunts approval. That is as close to thank you as Osric gets. He offers you a small pouch in return. Inside, dried mushrooms. You blink. Mushrooms in winter? But he grins and jerks his head toward the chapel. Cellar. Hidden corner. You nod, stunned. It is a king's ransom. You rush home, boil water, and add 3 tiny caps to the pot. They expand slowly, little umbrellas unfurling in a cloudy broth. You add a shaving of turnip and a thread of salt. The smell alone nearly breaks you. You eat in silence, savoring each bite. The texture, the earthy bitterness. It feels like eating outside, like eating forward. That afternoon, you help Marn lift a fallen beam from her nephew's yard. She rewards you with a cracked pot full of lard, probably pig, maybe goose, possibly do not ask. You use it to grease your boots. They do not leak for the first time in weeks. The little things matter now. You mend a tear in your cloak with thread from your shirt hem. You scrape soot from the walls and mix it with water to patch the inside cracks. You carve a fork, not because you need one, but because your hands are restless and your soul wants elegance. You even sweep your roof, climb up with a stick and a prayer, brush away the soggy moss, the half-frozen mulch. You know it will leak again someday, but for now it breathes. That evening, you sit with Joran and Elis by the fire near the green. Joran plays a flute, badly. You had no idea he owned a flute. Alice is darning socks. She mutters that she once danced with a boy who owned 3 goats and a shoe buckle carved from bone. You all laugh. You tell them the story of the jester and the king again, the one you invented with the story stones. This time, the jester wins by hiding in a turnip barrel. They ask for another. You make up one about Sir Rootsworth, secret knight of the Frozen Order, protector of the rootless, defender of flavor. They laugh until Joran drops the flute in the mud. Later, you walk home under stars. The path is clear, not dry, not safe, but visible. And you realize you know this path. Every rut, every twist. It is not just survival anymore. It is home. Back in your hut, you check the tally, 16 marks. You add a star beside this one, because tonight you remembered what stars feel like. You sleep deeply. No dreams. Only the warmth of mushroom broth, the taste of ash lace stories, and the quiet breathing of a world waking up. The sky wakes before you. When you open your eyes, the hut is already aglow with something softer than firelight. Morning sun, real sun, slips between the shutter slats like warm fingers. For a moment, you lie still, afraid that moving will chase it away. Then you sit up and realize your face is warm. Warm. You laugh. Outside, it smells like wet bark and thawed dung. You could cry for joy. You do not, though. You have work to do. Today is a wash day. You gather your linens, the cloak, the bedding, your long under tunic that could probably be declared legally haunted, and drag everything down to the stream. The path there is now more mud than ice, and the water runs freer than before. You break through a thin crust of frost at the edge, then plunge your cloth into the freezing current. It stings, but the sting feels good, alive. You scrub with ash and crushed mint stems. Not clean, exactly, but cleaner. You slap the tunic against a rock just for the sound of it. It makes a loud, satisfying thwack that startles a nearby crow. You string the damp laundry across a branch to dry. It hangs there like some kind of limp, surrendering banner. You are proud of it. On the way back, you stop by the goat girl's hut. The kid, barely a day old, is wobbling on toothpick legs, nosing at its mother. The girl offers you a cup, warm milk. You blink down at it, like it might vanish. It is creamy, thin, and almost sweet. You sip slowly, then you sip again. The heat pools in your chest. You hand the cup back with trembling fingers. In return, you offer a single dried turnip slice. She accepts it without comment. The exchange is sacred. Historians still argue whether early spring milk was reserved solely for children and the sick, or if communities shared it communally in tiny sips to mark the season's turn. No matter which truth holds, you just drank spring. Back at your hut, your laundry flaps slightly in a weak breeze. You build a fire, not because you must, but because you want to. You cook a meal with almost every flavor you have left: turnip, garlic, dried mushroom, and a handful of those precious chickweed stems you had saved in a little pouch. It tastes complicated, like the inside of a forest and the memory of someone else's stew. You invent a name for it. The gruel royal. Sir Rootsworth looks unapprovingly. You consider finally eating him. He seems ready, but not yet. Instead, you take stock. 4 turnips, 2 dried slices, 1 lump of fermented mash, 3 spoonfuls of lard, a pouch of garlic, a button, a story about a goat, and hope that, more than anything, you spend the afternoon weaving. Not well. You were never trained, but you lash together long grasses, old reeds, and threads pulled from torn clothing to create a mat. Something to sit on, something to have. It squeaks when you place it by the door, but it feels like home. Then, without fully meaning to, you clean. You scrape out the ashes from the hearth, fold your bedding, brush away cobwebs. The place still looks like it belongs to a damp raccoon, but now it is a raccoon with pride. That night, you take your fork and spoon and set them on the mat. You place Sir Rootsworth beside them. Then, as if hosting a feast for ghosts, you sit cross-legged and tell a story aloud. The story of a person who survived winter with nothing but turnips and nerve. You change some details. In this version, the main character has a cape made of moss and a whistle that summons owls. But the heart of it is real. You fall asleep sitting up, head against the doorframe, fire cracking low. The moon slips in through the shutters, lighting your dried herbs, your empty cup, your carefully etched tally, 17 marks. Beside this one, you draw a cup, because today you drank from the future. The earth is soft beneath your boots. You notice it first thing, how your feet sink a little with each step, not with dread, not with that brittle crunch of frostbite waiting beneath the surface, but with weight, moisture, life. The topsoil has begun to wake up. You head to the compost pit, which now steams faintly in the early light. The turnip husks you tossed weeks ago have become something entirely new. Dark, spongy, almost sweet-smelling muck. You grin. Today, you decide, is a planting day. Yes, it is too early. Yes, the frost may return. Yes, this is madness. But hope has never been logical. You take the best of your turnip seeds, collected carefully from a withered sprout weeks ago, and pocket them in a little twist of cloth. You return to the patch of earth near your hut, where you buried the soft turnip in section 15. You dig carefully, respectfully, as if you might disturb something sacred, and there it is. Sprout, tiny, determined. You could cry again. You plant your seeds in a rough ring around it, fingers numb, lips cracked, but breath steaming steady in the sunlight. Then you build a crude windbreak from broken kindling, just tall enough to give it shelter. There, the first field of your imaginary kingdom. You call it rootstead. You spend the rest of the morning bartering. 1 half stick of lard to the widow marn gets you a cracked jug with a pinch of barley at the bottom. Just dust, really, but enough. From Thorn, you get 2 small fish, salted beyond all reason. In return, you give him your last piece of thread. From the goat girl, you trade one of your forks for another cup of warm milk. This time, you drink it outside. Historians still argue whether milk from early spring goats was boiled or drunk raw, with tales of both nourishment and nausea depending on who tells the story. But this cup does not betray you. It settles into your stomach like a blanket. You smile. Alice gifts you a single onion bulb. No trade, just a wink and a plant it or don't. You almost laugh at how royal it feels, an onion with layers. You bury it next to your turnip patch with great ceremony. In the afternoon, something rare happens. A traveler arrives, not from far away, just the next village over. He arrives muddy, with a bruised lip and one boot held together by string. But he carries a satchel full of tales. He says their snow melted 3 days ago. Their goats have already birthed. One man broke his arm trying to climb a greening tree just to see leaves again. The stories spread like fire. No one can get enough. He sits by the central fire, roasting something unidentifiable, and shares a song. Not a good one, but you hum along. You trade your second last dried turnip slice for the right to learn the chorus. That evening, you do something new. You wash your face. Not splash. Wash. Warm water. Clean cloth. A little crushed mint. The act feels ceremonial. Your reflection in the pot's surface is still a blur, but you think you look slightly less like a forgotten scarecrow. Then you take your last turnip slice, the very last one, and place it under your mat, a small gift to the ground that kept you. Sir Rootsworth still remains. He is no longer a resource. He is an artifact. You consider carving him into a talisman, a hollow totem, a root god. But for now, he watches over Rootstead. That night, before bed, you light a final scrap of wood and carve the 18th tally. Beside it, a tiny leaf, and beneath it, smaller still, a sprout. Then you sit on your mat, hands open, and whisper to no one, "I have enough." It is not true, but it will be. You are woken by birdsong again, but this time, it is not just a single bird testing the air. It is many, a scattered choir of chirps and flutters, and that strange throat rattle sound starlings make when they gossip. You lie there, stunned. It sounds tropical. You rise slowly and push open the door. The world has changed. Green is everywhere now. Not lush, not full, but real. Grass blades poke through the mushy ground like little soldiers. Moss creeps up fence posts. The trees still wear skeletal branches, but at their tips, buds, tiny, swollen, green fuzzed buds. You laugh, a full belly deep, too loud laugh. A crow nearby squawks in disapproval. You do not care. You are barefoot before you realize it, squelching through the mud. The village smells like manure, moss, and wet firewood. It is glorious. You make your way to Rootstead, your patch, your kingdom. The turnip sprout is still there, stronger, even. The onion is beginning to send up a green shoot. You kneel, gently clear away dead leaves, and whisper, "Good morning." Someone is shouting your name. You turn. It is Jorund. He is smiling. He waves something above his head. It takes a moment to recognize it. A hen's egg. You gasp. Eggs mean spring. Eggs mean life. He points toward his hut, grinning. One of his half-dead chickens laid it this morning. A miracle. You rush over, hands open. You offer a spoon, a pouch, even your comb. He refuses it all. He simply hands you the egg. You earned this, he says, and walks away. You stand there holding it, awestruck. It is smooth, warm, and oddly heavy. You carry it home like a relic. Inside, you place it carefully in your empty clay cup. Then you just look at it. This is your crown jewel. You do not eat it. Not yet. It needs a purpose. Instead, you spend the day building. You take the scraps of wood you have been hoarding and lash together a frame, a sort of lean to beside your hut. You cover it with reeds. It will be your drying shelter, your prep station, your throne room if needed. Midway through, the rain comes. Not snow, not sleet, rain. It begins as a drizzle, then thickens. You stand in it, face upturned, arms wide. It soaks your tunic, beads off your forehead, runs into your mouth. It tastes like metal and sky and resurrection. You stay out in it until you are shaking. Back inside, you light a fire and hang your cloak to dry. You eat your dinner slowly, roasted root ends, the last of the chickweed mash, and water flavored faintly with mint. Then you sit with the egg again. Historians still argue whether the appearance of eggs in late winter marked a true turning point for medieval villagers, or simply a short reprieve before the long slog toward planting. Some records claim entire feasts were held around the first egg. Others say it was hoarded like treasure. You understand both instincts. You place the egg next to Sir Rootsworth. They sit together, a mismatched royal court, the elder and the heir. That night, something inside you softens, not melts, not fades, just rests. You look around your hut, your home, and feel it breathing with you. The tally marks on the wall shimmer faintly in firelight. 18 and 1 new. You carve the 19th mark. Beside it, you draw an oval. Simple, powerful, and then you curl beneath your blanket, warm from your fire, full enough, clean enough, and let sleep take you. Outside, rain taps the roof like a lullaby. In your dreams, you are planting onions in a garden that never ends. You wake to silence. Not the heavy, ominous silence of deep winter, but a bright, restful quiet. The kind that follows rain. The kind that hangs in the air just before a bird calls out and ruins it. You sit up, stretch, and feel something unusual. Strength. It is not dramatic. You are still lean, still hungry more often than not, but there is fuel in your limbs again. You stand with ease. Your joints no longer creak like door hinges from a haunted abbey. You go outside, and the world has bloomed. Not fully, not like a painter's dream, but enough. Little things. Shoots in the mud. Pale blossoms peeking from thorn bushes. Bees, actual bees, hovering near Marn's herb bed. A frog croaking from the half-thawed pond. You step into the light, blinking. The village feels alive. People are moving fast. Chatter flows like water. The goat girl is herding her animal past your hut, singing softly. Thorn is dragging branches into the square, muttering about a maple too early. But hope is worse than frostbite, he grins. You smile back. Then you go to rootstead. The turnip sprout has doubled in size. The onion is now a green flare. You gently press your fingers into the earth around them. Damp, loose, perfect. You decide. Today, you sow your first real seeds. Barley first, then the last 4 turnip seeds from your pouch. A single line, a quiet prayer. You do not say anything out loud. The planting says it for you. And when you return to your hut, hands muddy, stomach rolling, you make a choice. You take the egg. You hold it over the fire for a moment, hesitating. Then you boil it. Gently, reverently. It spins in the pot like a tiny planet. When it is ready, you place it on your best dish, a clay tile you stole from the chapel's broken floor weeks ago, and slice it open. The yolk is golden, not runny, not dry. Perfect. You eat it slowly, and you cry. Not the desperate kind of crying that comes from loss or fear, but the soft kind, the kind that sneaks up when you realize, against all odds, that you made it. You survived. Historians still argue whether the worst winters truly ended when spring came, or whether the real hunger started now, when supplies were gone and crops were not yet ready. But you understand something deeper. Spring does not rescue you. You rescue you. Spring just holds the door open. That afternoon, you clean your hut from top to bottom. You stack your forks. You polish your firestones. You wash Sir Rootsworth in a bowl of warm water, then dry him with your cloak. He has earned it. You even make an offering. You take a pebble, smooth and round, and bury it in rootstead. A marker, a promise. One day, this will be a proper garden. Then, with fingers trembling, you carve your final tally mark, 20. Beside it, you draw a sun, and beneath that one last image, a hand, open, reaching, not begging, welcoming. You sit in your doorway as dusk settles, your fire crackling behind you, and breathe in the scent of wet earth and distant flowers. You do not speak. You do not need to. You have made it. You, with just turnips and grit and imagination. The wind shifts, warmer now. The season turns, and you, strange little survivor, turn with it. So now, close your eyes. Let your body feel heavy again. Let your breath slow. Let the final coals of this story burn down, gently, softly, like the last embers in your hearth. You are safe now. The long winter, imagined or remembered, is behind you. Your body may still ache. Your cupboards may still echo. But your hands have learned the rhythm of survival. The turning of soil. The counting of days. The meaning of quiet. In your mind, feel the earth beneath your feet again. Cool, spongy, alive with sleeping seeds. Smell the wood smoke curling from your little fire. Taste the ghost of that egg, the warmth, the richness, the relief. The worst has passed. And even if hardship comes again, even if frost returns one day without warning, you will know what to do. You will remember how to stretch a turnip into a meal, how to laugh in the mud, how to draw marks on the wall, not for sorrow, but for triumph. You have survived this night, and the next, and many more to come. So let your eyes rest. Let the sound of soft rain or wind, real or imagined, fill the edges of your room. Let the world carry on without you. Just for now, you have done enough. You are enough. Good night, traveler, and sweet dreams.